Good afternoon and welcome to ESSSuper's annual members meeting for the 2022-23 financial year. My name is Christian Kuhn and I'm the manager of the member education team. It's my pleasure to be your MC today. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional owners on the lands on which we meet, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. We extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people attending today. Thank you to everyone joining us online and in person. It's fantastic to have around 400 members with us today. We appreciate this opportunity to connect, update you on the fund, and most importantly, answer your questions. The board members of ESSSuper are also present this afternoon, along with our executive team and our actuary. For our online audience, you can maximise the video player screen using the expander button in the top right-hand corner of the video. If you need help, please use the red live support icon in the top right corner of your screen. We'll hear from three speakers today. We've got Joan Fitzpatrick, the board president, Robbie Campo, our chief executive officer, and Daniel Sellerton, our group executive of investments. The presentations will also be followed by a Q&A session. Thank you to everyone who submitted questions in advance. If you're joining us in person and you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand once the question and answer session has started, and a handheld microphone will be brought to you. If you're attending online and you would like to ask a question at any time, please use the live Q&A function on the right-hand side of your screen. Type your question into the text box and click the submit button. We'll go through your questions when we reach that session in the meeting. I'd now like to introduce our board president, Joan Fitzpatrick. An experienced company director and business leader, Joan's executive and director experience covers the corporate, government and non-for-profit sectors. She has a strong track record of working collaboratively across different stakeholders and achieving successful business outcomes in complex change environments. Joan currently works with a diverse portfolio of non-executive director roles, including at Defence Bank, Catholic Church Insurance and the AFL Players Injury and Hardship Fund. In addition, she runs her private consulting business, Alviarium Proprietary Limited, and does a range of pro bono charity work. Joan is a qualified barrister, a fellow of the AICD, and a fellow of ANZIF. Welcome, Joan Fitzpatrick.
Thanks very much, Christian, for that detailed account of me. That was very, very good. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of all the board members who are either physically present here today or have joined us online, I'd like to extend my own very warm welcome to all of you for attending our annual members meeting today. So big welcome to everyone. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of those lands on which we meet and which we all live, work and gather throughout Australia, and their connections to land, waterways and community. For us here in Melbourne, as everybody probably knows, we acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. We thank and honour them for their sacrifice and stewardship and for their continuing deep spiritual relationship to country. We commit ourselves to the ongoing journey of reconciliation and the cultural safety of all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders people. For all of us who work here at ESSSuper, our purpose is really very, very clear. We are absolutely committed to doing everything we can to support our members, protect their wealth, and assist them to achieve the best possible retirement outcomes. For almost 100 years, ESSSuper and the funds before it have been really proud to take care of the retirement benefits of those who take care of Victorians. We're deeply grateful for all that our members do to protect our health and well-being, support our communities, and keep Victorians safe. It's a real privilege to serve you. We were delighted to welcome our new CEO, not so new anymore, Robbie, but our new CEO, Robbie Campo, at the start of the 2022-23 financial year. Now, more than a year into the role, Robbie has clearly demonstrated excellent leadership, professionalism and competency as she leads the fund with her very talented team to continually improve the products and services we provide and deliver to our members. I'm pleased to share some of ESSSuper's performance highlights since she assumed the reins. Our investment performance has been exceptionally strong relative to other funds. ESSSuper was named the top performing balanced superannuation fund for 2022-23 by Super Ratings, an independent rating agency. We returned 13.3% over the financial year. This is a tremendous result, especially as we're rated against the performance of many much larger funds than ours. Our longer-term performance has also been very positive, with our 5-year investment returns outperforming the median of Super Ratings peer funds. Robbie and Dan are going to talk a bit more in detail about the strong performance which ESSSuper has achieved across its investment options in the last financial year. But these are strong indicators that our member super is in the right hands and that we're helping them to achieve the comfortable retirement they deserve. While for many years the fund was focused on being a responsible steward of our members' retirement savings, we've also recently committed to targeting net zero across our investments by 2050. We know that some members are concerned that this will come at a cost to their investment returns, but in fact, responsible investing is critically important when it comes to managing risks and achieving longer-term returns. The team has worked really hard under challenging circumstances in these past year to embed new technology and administration arrangements, and we've made significant progress. The board continues to work closely with management to oversee this relationship that we have with Iris, the Australian-based company that runs our administration platforms and manages back-office processes for the fund. We're committing and really committed to achieving continuous improvements to further enhance member experience. We're now starting to leverage new technology to improve channels, tools, and self-service capabilities for members, which is really exciting. We're currently developing a new website that will be significantly easier to navigate than the old and will provide a better overall experience for everyone. With regard to your board of directors, of the 12 director positions, 6 are nominated by the government and 6 are elected by members. The government-appointed directors bring a broad range of skills and experience gained from commercial, legal, finance, technology, accounting, and consulting roles. The member-elected directors bring deep expertise in a range of disciplines from their work in the police, the ambulance, fire and rescue, and teaching professions. Importantly, because the member-elected directors engage directly with our members and their employers and unions every single day, they provide great insights to inform our thinking and our business focus. As a consequence, the board is very well placed to provide strong strategic guidance, good governance and oversight of all ESSSuper's activities, and the stewardship required to ensure a healthy, can-do, member-based and member-focused culture. Together with management and in consultation with members, employers, industry and government stakeholders, we're working on a 5-year strategic plan. This new plan sets out how we'll enhance member experience across assisted and digital channels, further improve members' financial well-being, and continue to strengthen governance and data security in an environment of very heightened risk, as we all have been very aware of in these past months. As always, members' best interests are front and centre of everything we do. Before I hand back to Christian, I'd like to take this opportunity to express the board's gratitude. Firstly, to the government, employers and unions for all of their support. Next to the ESSSuper team of staff for their hard work and the deep commitment to members, its unfailing, unwavering commitment to members. It's really quite extraordinary. Most of all, I'd really like to sincerely thank all of you, our members, for all you do for our communities every day. Being the custodian of your retirement savings is a privilege and a responsibility that we take very, very seriously. And we will always put you, the members, first. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Joan. Our next speaker is the Chief Executive Officer of ESSSuper, Robbie Campo. Robbie joined ESSSuper in July 2022 and has worked as an executive in the superannuation industry for over 20 years. With broad experience in superannuation, including strategy, risk management and transformation, Robbie is passionate about the financial security of Australians in their post-working years. One of her key priorities is to see systemic improvements in women's retirement outcomes. Robbie holds a law degree with honours, a Bachelor of Arts, a Bachelor of Education and a graduate diploma in Applied Finance and Investment. She's also a graduate of the Australian Institute of Company Directors. Welcome, Robbie.
Thank you, Christian. I'd also like to welcome everyone joining us this afternoon online and in person. I and the entire ESSSuper team are very proud to serve you. ESSSuper is a very different kind of super fund in recognition of the remarkable contributions our members make. Firstly, we're part of your community. It's very important to me as the CEO that ESSSuper has strong relationships with our members and employers, industry and government, key stakeholders who can help us better meet your needs while you're working and while you're in retirement. As a result of this collaboration, the benefits you receive are often unique. Another key point of difference is that most of our members can look forward to their future with greater financial certainty. For those members with defined benefits, your entitlements are part of your employment conditions and therefore your defined benefits aren't impacted by investment markets performance. It's likely our members will retire with a higher retirement savings balance than the average Australian. For members who have retirement savings outside our defined benefits, we offer a range of strong performing investment options. Joan has already mentioned that ESSSuper was named the top performing balanced superannuation fund for 2022-23 by Super Ratings, with our balanced growth option returning 13.3% over the last financial year. We're incredibly proud to have achieved this outcome for our members. We're also a strong performer over the long term, and it is the long term that really counts in superannuation. Over the 5 years up to 30 June 2023, our balanced investment option achieved a return of 5.8% per year, placing it in the number 2 spot when ranked against all its peers for that option in the whole superannuation system. Our balanced growth option returns 7.4% over the same period, and that ranks it at 3rd overall compared with all other super funds. Our aim is to always perform in the top quartile or top 25% of funds to ensure that we're driving consistently strong outcomes for our members. Daniel Sellerton, our Group Executive of Investments, will provide you with a detailed investment update next. A third differentiator is the priority we place on providing high quality service. When I spoke to you at our last annual members meeting, which was in February this year, We'd recently outsourced our member administration functions to a third-party iris and implemented some new systems, and we were at that point dealing with a range of challenges. For the most part, these systems are now more stable and our core business processes are running smoothly. There remain a few localised issues that we continue to work through as a priority. We're now building on these platforms to implement new channels, tools and self-service capabilities to meet our members' evolving needs and continually strengthen our security. In 2024, we'll be launching a new website that will be significantly easier to navigate, serve up relevant, easy-to-use content, and provide you with a better overall experience. Members can transact instantly via our member online portal. However, we are aware that our app has some limitations, so developing a new app is also high on our list of priorities. In the last financial year, we answered around 111,000 calls and completed around 8,000 personal member meetings. Our team ran 37 education events in our office and in Wangaratta, Geelong, Traralgon, Bendigo, Ballarat and online. We also met with members at 105 workplaces across the state. Our financial advisors, who understand the many complexities of ESSSuper's defined benefits and pensions better than most external advisors possibly could, provided personalised recommendations to 304 of our members seeking to maximise their financial wellbeing. At last year's annual member meeting, and when I say last year's, it was earlier this calendar year but related to the previous financial year, we had requests from many members for more education events designed specifically for retirees. In response, we've run 20 Making the Most of Your Retirement seminars this year and offered sessions at both our offices and also locations across regional Victoria and online. We've been running a new series, our Lunch and Learn events for retired members, covering topics such as investments and Centrelink. I know that there's a number of you who are here in person today who have attended our member hub that was run before this annual member meeting, and I hope that you did benefit from the content that was delivered to you and the opportunity to talk to our staff. I'm really delighted to report that our members awarded our member education and advice teams with a satisfaction score of 95% and told us that our people really helped them to understand the features of their super fund and the options available to them so that they could enter retirement with confidence and a sense of security. I'm pleased to say that we returned value to you in a number of other ways in 2022-23. Very importantly, fees have an impact on retirement benefits that members accrue in their accumulation accounts. At ESSSuper over the last few years, we've had a dedicated focus on reducing fees and costs in our accumulation and income stream products. Over the past 3 years, we've reduced, and when I say we've, I mean Dan and his team, have worked very hard to reduce investment fees for 8 out of 9 of our investment options. This makes them some of the lowest cost actively managed superannuation options in Australia. At a time when some other funds are increasing their fees, effective from 1 July this year, we've also reduced our administration fee and the fee cap that applies to our accumulation plan and our account-based income stream products. And this has seen some members save over $1,300 a year, and that will be each year from now. As a result of our focus on reducing costs for members, we're proud that this makes our accumulation plan's total fee costs lower than 2/3 of all other funds in the superannuation's fee survey. In fact, members invested in our balanced growth option are well and truly in the lowest 25%, with a total fee cost of $282 per year. As well as reducing fees from the 1st of July forward, we also rebated a portion of last year's administration fees to members with an open accumulation beneficiary or income stream account that was open on the 31st of May 2023. So effectively rebating 11 months of the previous year's administration fees in line with a fee reduction. So, just to repeat, in effect this means our fee reduction has applied since the start of the last financial year for members who are in the fund on the 31st of May. Another change that has been made was that we renamed some of our investment options so that the terminology we use was more consistent with that used by other super funds. We did this to make it easier for members to see how we line up from a target return and risk perspective. We're also working to launch a new investment option, which will become the default for members, and we're aiming to do that before the end of the financial year. And that will be the new default for members in the ESSSuper accumulation plan or income stream who haven't selected their own option. This new investment option will be designed to provide members with a higher long-term return objective than our existing default for comparable fees. While we're driven by achieving member outcomes rather than winning awards, it was great to see ESSSuper recognised as a top performer on a number of fronts. We've already mentioned it, but I will hope you'll indulge me to mention it one more time. Independent ratings agency Super Ratings did name ESSSuper as the top performing balanced superannuation fund for 2022-23. They also rated our accumulation plan as platinum for the 14th year in a row and our income stream products as platinum for the 15th year in a row. Platinum is the highest possible rating that they award and is only awarded to the top 25% of funds. This recognises our strong offering across not only investments, but our fees, our insurance, our member service, and the advice and education we offer to our members. I'm very proud to say that we're also named as a finalist in 2 categories for the Super Fund of the Year awards, which was Career Fund of the Year and Default Insurance Offering. This is an acknowledgement of how much we're doing to deliver for our members. Our ongoing commitment at ESSSuper is to focus on long-term outcomes for members and ensure that they approach and enter retirement as financially secure as possible. Looking ahead, we'll be implementing a range of initiatives to continue this work, including expanding our advice offering, making sure that we leverage member feedback to continue to improve our systems and processes, continually strengthening our cyber security and data security in a global environment of heightened risk, and redesigning a retirement income solution that gives members a better opportunity to manage their income for the rest of their lives. I want to really thank you for attending this year's annual member meeting, either in person or online. I and Joan and Dan really look forward to answering any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Robbie. It's now my pleasure to introduce our final speaker of the day, our Group Executive for Investments, Daniel Sellerton. Daniel joined ESSSuper in June 2018 and leads the organisation's investment function. Before that, he held senior roles in asset allocation, investment strategy and asset consulting. Daniel holds a first-class honours degree in finance from the University of Melbourne and is a CFA charter holder. Over to you, Daniel.
Thank you, Christian. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our annual members meeting. My name is Daniel Salutin, and I head up the investment function here at ESSSuper. I'm delighted to be with you this afternoon to speak about investment markets and to provide you an update on our investment performance. But I wanted to begin today's session with a couple of important points worth noting. So for our members in the defined benefit funds, your superannuation is determined ultimately by your employment conditions, which means that returns don't matter as much as understanding the rules governing your fund. And this is something that our member ed team can assist you with today if you do have any questions about your benefits. For the other members in our accumulation and retirement options, financial markets will have a bearing on your superannuation, which is why it's important to make sure as a priority that you're invested in options which are right for you. That is, of course, notwithstanding that our default option is a good choice for many. I wanted to take this opportunity to note that we've actually got some pretty tremendously capable people here at ESSSuper that are looking after your savings, and I hope to demonstrate that statement by talking to our investment performance in some greater detail, because we've had some tremendous results over the past couple of years. For those of you who have joined us at our last members meeting in February, you'll recall me speaking about the effects of rising inflation and declining returns and how that's impacted investment performance. So in very simple terms, higher inflation makes it difficult to generate a return that keeps pace with the rising cost of living. And almost all of our investment options of the 9 that we offer have a return objective which is some hurdle above the general rate of inflation. So the chart you see on screen shows the consequences of high inflation and low returns. The graph is our default balanced option. In purple is the return, and the objective is in grey. And you can see on the chart there that the gap between returns in purple and inflation in grey has gradually narrowed, particularly over the last couple of years. And the graph in question, it's depicting a rolling 10-year period. So it's been invested for 10 years at each point on the chart. And you can see that the pinch on the screen there between inflation and returns is visible, but it's actually more visible on a shorter term basis. So I've got another chart for that up next. So this next chart is our performance over 3 years to September 2023. And you can see that against our inflation-linked objectives, a number of our investment options have struggled to keep pace with inflation, which peaked at 7.8% in calendar year 2022. So what that means in practice, it means our default balanced option needed to generate 7.8% plus an additional 3% to meet its return objectives that year. On a positive note, inflation has begun to gradually decline to more normal but still elevated levels. And to get inflation to come down, central banks have had to slow the economy, and they've done this by increasing interest rates. If you think of a typical household with a mortgage or a credit card repayment, as interest rates have risen, the proportion of their salaries that have had to go to service that debt has increased. And as a consequence, that means there's less left over to spend on other expenses. Interest rates have in fact risen much higher and much faster than many have expected, and that's had a pronounced effect on debt as well as share market investments. Your investments with us pleasingly were much more resilient than the median super ratings fund, and that was thanks in part to investments we've made on your behalf in infrastructure as well as private credit assets, which provided a strong ballast to portfolio returns. I'll speak to peer relative performance in a bit more detail shortly, but before I do, I wanted to caution that the fight against inflation isn't over yet, and interest rates may in fact need to remain higher for longer. This means a more challenging environment for businesses and an increased risk of the economy slowing more severely than intended. And the pathway forward is, as many of you will likely know, is made more challenging by geopolitical tensions reaching levels we haven't seen in decades, and the impact of these tensions on economies and on investment markets creates uncertainty in an overall very rapidly changing environment. Our investment team is working very hard to ensure that the options that we do manage on your behalf are positioned as well as they possibly can be to handle the challenging environment. And to date, as Joan and Robbie have stressed with great emphasis, our balanced growth option was named the highest performing balanced option by Super Ratings the previous financial year. And for members that have been with us for a while, we used to call that option the basic growth option. I'm happy to report that that positive result last financial year has been maintained, and our returns have continued to be very strong against Super Ratings peers over the year to September 2023. And the chart on screen shows that. You can see on screen that's the one-year result to 30th September. 8 of 9 of our investment options have returned in the top 25% of their respective Super Ratings peers over that period. Those of you who have watched our market update videos online will of course be aware that superannuation is about long-term results, and while shorter-term performance is always very welcome, I'm pleased to say that our latest 5-year numbers have also been very, very strong to September 2023. And we can see that on this next chart here. This is the 5-year numbers. Again, 8 of 9 investment options have significantly outperformed the median Super Ratings peer fund over the 5 years to September 2023. I'd like to conclude today by thanking you for trusting ESSSuper to safeguard your retirement savings. I look forward to answering any questions you may have in our formal question and answer sessions, and I'll also make myself available at the conclusion of the formal Q&A in case anyone had any one-on-one questions. Thank you again.
Thank you, Daniel. That concludes the formal presentations. We hope you found them informative. It's now time to hear from you in our question and answer session. So a quick reminder for those attending online, if you'd like to ask a question during the meeting, please use the live Q&A feature on the top right-hand side of your screen. Type your question into the text box and click the submit button. Particularly for our online attendees, if multiple people ask a similar question, we may group them and ask the question once, meaning you may not hear your specific words. If you're here in person and would like to ask a question, please raise your hand and a handheld microphone will be brought to you. It is important that you wait for the microphone to get to you or the online attendees won't be able to hear you. Please stand if you can and introduce yourself if you're comfortable and ask your questions so that the panellists can see you. Return the microphone once you finish speaking and then you can take your seat as the panellists answer. We have received questions prior to the meeting and we want to get through as many of them as possible. We'd appreciate if you could keep your questions brief and focused on a single query to ensure other members do have an opportunity to speak. Please also avoid extended statements as this will mean less time for other members to ask their questions. And also note we can't answer any personal questions or give financial advice. Excuse me. If you do have questions of a personal nature and are attending in person, our member education consultants will be available to provide information and general advice after the meeting. They are available to all members between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday to Friday, both in person and online. We'll endeavour to get through as many questions as possible in the available time today. If we don't get to your question, please don't worry. We'll post answers to all questions on our website by the 21st of December, together with a recording of today's meeting and the minutes. Okay, so we'll start with a pre-submitted question. So this question was submitted by Ian and Cheryl, and they've submitted 2 questions which can be answered together. So the first one is, why are ESSSuper's fees so high? And also, when will the reduction in fees announced this year be applied? I might address that to you, please, Robbie.
Thank you. I wonder whether it's worthwhile that we bring up the slide that we had during the main presentation, just because I think it does include some of the information that's relevant to this. It's already there. Good. We did cover this, but given that we had a question, we thought we would specifically respond to the question just to emphasise. So we have worked hard over the last 3 years, and I think now we can say that we are very competitive in terms of the fees that we charge on our accumulation and income stream account. Obviously, for those with defined benefit entitlements, because your entitlements are determined under your employment conditions, it's less relevant for you, both the investment returns and the fees that are charged, because they don't have a bearing on the entitlement that you receive. So for 8 of our 9 accumulation investment options, we have, over the past 3 years, reduced our fees, making them some of the lowest cost actively managed options in the super system. And in addition, we made reduction to our accumulation and account-based income stream fees from 1 July this year, and this has seen some members have a fee reduction of $1,300 a year. So it depends on what your balance is. That's really what determines the level of savings that you receive. So from 1 July this year, the percentage-based fee on those account types have reduced from 0.25% to 0.2%, so that's a 20% reduction. Importantly, we also lowered the fee cap, so that's the total fee that you'd be charged in a year, and that fee cap was reduced from $2,120 per year, which was the previous cap, down to $750 a year. So that's a very significant reduction in the fee cap that applies. In addition, so that's the fee change that applied prospectively from 1 July. We also rebated some of the fees that applied in the previous year. And I think that the question that came in online was really questioning where was that visible in my statement. So the way that we were able to give effect to that rebate was through a change to the unit price that applied on that date. So it didn't show up on your statement as a line item, but it certainly was applied to all members who had an accumulation or income stream account on the 31st of May this year. And the detail about that and the way it was calculated was included in an article we had in the June edition of our Super News email newsletter. So if you need further information about that, we'll include a link to that in the answer that we post to this question when we publish our annual member meeting. So there'll be more information should anyone want it. Thank you.
Thanks, Robbie. We've got another pre-submitted question. This is an anonymous question here about delays to processing requests. Can I address this to you as well, please, Robbie?
Thank you. So over the past 18 months, we have, as we've been bedding down our new systems, had occasions where members have had disruptions to the normally high standards that we apply in terms of processing times for different types of transactions. So the first thing we want to say is we apologise for those those disruptions. It was very important for us to make the changes that we made to our systems, because the old systems that we were working on would not have been fit for purpose into the future. The old technology certainly wouldn't have allowed us to extend our services in line with member expectations and give you the accessibility, flexibility and speed that you've told us that you want. So these new systems are working much better than they were when we had our last annual member meeting in February, and are largely stable and business processes are working smoothly. But we still do have some occasions where there are disruptions to the high service standards that we set, and we are continuing to work through those as a priority. I guess the other thing I'd like to say is, if you are a member who's experiencing hardship, we would always encourage you to come forward and make that known, so that we can, there are exceptions that we can apply to make sure that if there are going to be delays to processing your transaction, we can provide you with support to see through. So we certainly really try to focus on meeting that high standard, and I'm sure by the time we come around to the next annual member meeting, we'll be able to report on further progress. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now open it up to the floor. Do we have any questions in the audience here? Yes, sir.
Thank you. My name's Wayne Chogger from Ambulance Victoria. I wanted to get back to the fee reduction program that we have. It's a significant amount, and I was interested to understand what is funding the fees reduction program.
Thank you.
So I might take that one. So I think that this was part of what the strategy was in terms of the new systems that we were putting in place. So part of what the intention was to ensure that we could operate more efficiently than we were in the past. We moved from having a number of different systems and consolidating everything into one system. So we really worked towards looking at the different ways that we could run the fund in a more modern way and a more efficient way. And that enabled us then to review, to look at what our future costs would be and ensure that, because the fund is run on a not-for-profit basis, there's no margin going anywhere to fund profits to a parent company or to the shareholders of a parent company. And so as we work towards making the fund more efficient, we're able to really look at our cost base and ensure that we're only charging members what it cost to operate the fund. So it really was the product of the hard work that the team had done over a number of years in looking at how we modernise our processes to make sure that we could lower those fees and pass those through to our members. So that's relevant for the administration fees. On the investment fees side, it was really Dan and his team working very hard across all of the relationships we have with fund managers and really negotiating very hard to make sure that we got the sharpest price we could in terms of the funds management fees that were being applied. So it's really a reflection of the focus we have on our members and making sure that we're doing everything to deliver the most value to you that is the result. And we're very proud of those fee reductions. They're not insignificant, and they really, we know, will mean that over time more value will be delivered to you for the rest of your relationship with ESSSuper. Great question, thank you.
Thank you. We've got an online question that's just come through. This is from Emil, who's asked, my experience with ESSSuper consultants has been great, but I've received different statement amounts. This is confusing and has taken more than a few months. Why is this happening? Why would defined benefits provide different amounts? Because it's a defined benefit, well, I might take this one, if you don't mind. Yeah, thanks. So the defined benefit normally wouldn't move up and down, just based on the formula there, but underlying behind the scenes, there's always a minimum requisite benefit top-up, which is basically doing a comparison against your defined benefit, against how a normal fund would work in an interest-based calculation. And if at any point the interest-based calculation overtakes the defined benefit, we give you a top-up to get you up to that minimum amount. So you kind of get this one or that one, whichever is the higher. Now, because that's driven by market forces, being this minimum benefit top-up, that can fluctuate. So it could be that. But I would suggest for a question like this, it's probably best to organise a meeting with a member education consultant. Again, we'll sit down and we'll walk through the process and make sure you understand exactly why your benefit's moving like that. But thank you, Emil. We're going to grab another pre-submitted question. This one is from Ian. Ian's asked, is ESSSuper within the top 10 superannuation funds in Australia? If not, what steps have been taken to achieve top 10 ranking? Could I address that to you, please, Joan?
That's because I gave you the last one. You're giving me.
Yeah, that's right.
That's a great question. I think the most important thing about that question, why aren't we in the top 10, is that we contextualise what that means, because we're not actually measuring or comparing apples for apples. There's a whole raft of funds, retail funds, super funds that are much larger than ours, and they have different objectives. And I think what I would call out for us in terms of why I think we're high performing and we sort of perform above all expectations is because we have a really deep connection to purpose. So We are designed to provide outcomes for what we regard to be a really special group of people, the people who are on the front line of service to Victorians. And that is a really noble purpose for us. It's what gets everybody up out of bed in the morning and really enthusiastic about coming to ESSSuper to work. We're also a profit-to-member fund. So when you're, again, comparing performance, again, that apples for apples thing is really difficult to do with an entity like ESSSuper. So we're really focused, we're really specialised, we're profit-to-member, and we're not enormous compared to some of the really, really big industry or retail funds. But nevertheless, having said all that, we're still proudly saying to you, and I think we've probably said it a few times today, we are actually amongst the top performing funds on the things that really matter, on the things that really matter to you as members. The first is investment performance. You're getting great investment performance from this fund. And again, we've said it time and time again, returning 13.3% in our sort of balanced growth option is quite a phenomenal outcome. And again, the median was 9%. So, 13.3 compared to 9 is pretty lovely. And our longer term performance also has been very positive. So, we've got a net 5-year return for the default balanced investment option of 5.3 compared to the median, which is all the other funds, of 3.9. So investment performance is critical for us. Daniel and his team just do an absolutely superlative job, and they're totally focused on really, really what I call this noble purpose, which is to ensure really excellent retirement returns for this cohort of people who are on the front line in Victoria every day of their lives, or who have been there and are now retired. I think in terms of member service, our goal, it's our mantra, it's our culture, is to aspire to be a leading fund in terms of service by any measure. And again, we get all these independent rating agencies coming in and looking at what we do. And again, we've been top ranked for member satisfaction in 7 of the last 10 years. We slipped last year because of all the trouble we had with the platform, etc. And the Investment Trends Member Engagement Report, which is another independent agency, measures that and comments on it, so it's publicly available information. So we know that our service levels were impacted last year. There's a lot of grief in the team about that last year. We're not used to doing anything less than delivering exceptional service, but we're pretty well through it all, thank heavens. Member satisfaction has been measured recently, and it's actually, again, and I think, Robbie, you said it, the member services team is, the satisfaction level is 82%. The member education team, the satisfaction level from our members is 95%, and the member advice team, that's another 95% score. And we watch this all the time. We are measuring because we want to know that we're still sitting up there at the top of the game. In terms of all the other aspects that would matter to you as members, fees, as we've just talked about, get those down, keep ourselves as efficient as we can be. Insurance, the insurance cover is exceptional. The type of advice that we were able to give you, the education programs that we deliver. Again, independent agency super ratings rated our accumulation plan as platinum. That's the top level you can get. You can't get anything bigger than that or better than that. And for the 14th year in a row, our income streams offering has also been rated as platinum. So again, we stay up there at the top level, competing against all those big, larger funds, and we achieve that highest possible rating. So whilst we may not be in the top 10 of all super funds in Australia, including all those big retail funds that I've mentioned, our measures of performance are that we're hitting really, really good service and performance levels around investment, etc. And so, I think the other thing to remember that we're not a one-size-fits-all. We're very specialist. We're very deeply ingrained into this bond that we have with the emergency services, the government employees, the SSF, et cetera, and we're dedicated really to delivering the best outcomes for that cohort. So we're sort of small, niche, focused, but able to be agile and really, really clear about what works and what is right for our members.
Thank you. Okay, we've got another pre-submitted question here from Anthony, asking how many members have not as yet received their 2022 annual benefit statements? That one's for you, please, Robbie. Yeah.
Thank you. So again, at our last annual member meeting, we did have a number of questions about, because there were delays in that first tranche of annual benefit statements that were issuing under our new system. We made a very difficult decision, which was that we would take the time we needed to make sure that we got statements out that were 100% correct. And that meant that there were delays as we were working through this new system. So there were delays, but I'm very happy to report today that all 2022 statements have been issued. And we do apologise again, because we know for some members that was very difficult, that there was such a long wait. I'll now also just mention 2023 statements, because I got the very happy email today saying that over 99% of the 2023 statements have also been delivered. So there's actually only a small number where we're still working through a few issues, and they'll be given the priority, but we're seeing now our annual statement run returning to its normal timing to make sure that you get the information you need at the time that you need it. Of course, all of the member information, transactions and contribution information can be accessed by any member on our online portal at any time. But we know many members like to receive their annual benefit statement, so I'm very happy to say we're now back into our normal rhythm and delivering them at the time that you have come to expect them at. If there's any questions about that, obviously please go and see one of our representatives after the session, or call our contact centre. But all statements now are well and truly on their way, apart from that very small number that we're still working through.
Thanks, Robbie. I will take a question from the audience if we had any questions. Sir, just wait, the mic will come to you in a moment.
Graham Bales, retiree, ESSSuper member. I just wondered about two-factor identification when going into the website. Is there any way of doing that other than through a mobile phone? It seems to me not to be a very secure system. I know everyone does it. With Commonwealth Bank, I use a random number generator, which they gave me, and you just push the button, and that's the extra level of identification required. Well, I just wondered, that's all. It just seems insecure to me, particularly with things like Optus going on.
Thank you for your question. We certainly place a significant importance on ensuring that we're continuing constantly to improve our cybersecurity profile. And we've had a lot of feedback from members who are frustrated with the additional steps that we've put in place to ensure that they have to go through additional processes in order to access our systems. And then further steps again if you're seeking to obtain a benefit or make a withdrawal from the fund. So we do benchmark that against all of the external benchmarks that have been created to make sure that organisations know that they're meeting best practice in terms of their settings, and we believe that we are maintaining against those high benchmarks. So, it is, and I think we spoke about this at the last member meeting, there's always that balancing between getting the right footing in terms of your risk profile and making sure you're attending to that, and the seamlessness of your experience. So I think we do think that what we have in place is secure, and we do constantly benchmark it. And it's something that the board does talk about at every single meeting. There'll be a focus and a review of how we're tracking in terms of the cybersecurity settings that we have across all of our systems. So, Joan, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've covered it all, but I think you're right. I mean, the question is very timely, and you know, we're seeing so many breaches happening, and so many big organisations having data breaches, which is incredibly concerning. The board is probably, you know, I'd say this would probably be in terms of our overall risk, this would be the single most important one for us at the moment. And we spend a lot of time, the board's accountable for cyber, for information security. We spend a lot of time, as Robbie said, and we've got, you know, a really capable, competent risk team internally, and we also have experts coming in from external to help us as well. It's a really difficult environment and a really difficult landscape, and so we're constantly alert, and you know, we're doing everything that we can to ensure that our members' data is safe and that we're protected as far as we can possibly be against a malicious attack. So, yeah, and most businesses in Australia at the moment are dealing with thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of attacks every day. So, you know, we all look at the Optus debacle and Medibank and think to ourselves, yeah, that's pretty horrendous, and it's very fear-inducing for everybody. So, core focus, buying in the expertise we need, bolstering our own risk team internally, and spending a lot of time on it and a lot of effort on it.
Thank you, Joan. We've actually got an online question. This one is from Christopher. Will members with ESSSuper accumulation accounts be given the option to invest their super in cryptocurrency EFTs once they've been approved in the USA by BlackRock? I might give that one to you, Daniel. Yeah.
Good on you, Daniel.
Thanks, Christian, and thank you, Christopher, for your question. We do review this space very regularly, and it's something we continue to monitor. At the moment, we don't have an option for members to access cryptocurrencies, and the basis for that is it's more of a speculative asset class than we think is appropriate for the majority of our members, but it is something we're reviewing all the time. At the moment, I'd caution Christopher to be very diligent in his review of that space, because it is an emerging asset class, and it's a space that you can lose a lot of money very quickly.
Thank you, Daniel. We've got another anonymous pre-submitted question that we'll go through. This is about our service response times over the phone and via email. Can I address this to you, please, Robbie?
Thank you. We do, as we've mentioned, place a high store on providing excellent service to our members. That means that we have set ourselves very high objectives in terms of our responsiveness to members. So for our member service centre, which is when you call up, who answers your call, we aim to have a wait time that's no longer than 5 minutes. In the current world, that's a very high standard, and most other financial organisations have a much lower standard that they aim to meet. But we know that our members find it very frustrating if they have to wait longer. Our average wait time over the last 3 months has not met that target. It's just under 9 minutes, which again, I think against the landscape of the financial services world that we operate in, is still a reasonably high standard, but it's not meeting what we've set, and so we are working towards putting in place the things we need to do to make sure that we are on average meeting that standard that we set. So we've put on some additional staff in our contact centre, and we're constantly looking at our process improvements and also our forecasting. So we know there are times where we get more calls, and we try to make sure that we ramp up our rostering in the contact centre to accommodate those times where we know there's more calls. We don't always get it right, but we do our best. Regarding email, when you email us, we'll send you a response saying that we will get back to you within 2 weeks. Now, most of the time we do respond more quickly than that, but there are times where, again, we have high volume and where what you're emailing us about is of a complex nature and it takes us some time to investigate and respond. So on average, I think our emails are responded to within 3 to 5 days, but we do leave ourselves open that longer time because we know that on occasion there are complexities that mean it takes us a little bit longer. Again, we always work hard to provide the highest service, and should a member have a matter or a situation that requires a more urgent response, then I'd always suggest that you do call the MSC and make that known to our staff so that we can appropriately prioritise your needs and ensure that you get the fastest response we can provide. Thanks.
Thanks, Robbie. I'll open up to the floor again. Anyone have any questions? Yes, sir.
Sorry, it's Wayne Shocker again from Amherst, Victoria. I was humoured at your security and online access explanation. My system auto-populates my member number. I've got a slick little password, and I've never been asked to do a double authentication for anything. I recently had a very sleepless night because I transferred a large amount of money and there was no questions asked, there was no double authentication, it just went through. And it wasn't until I could get on to ESSSuper 3 days later that I was able to find out that there was nothing untoward about what I'd done, but the security does not appear to be there, or it's the way that I've got my system set up, but I don't have any control over that.
I might invite our technology executive to respond to that, because I think there should be a two-factor authentication that applies where there's transacting. You'll need a mic, Akshat, so just wait for... So this is Akshat Gore, who's our Group Executive for Technology.
Am I audible to everyone? Yeah. So we do have two-factor for registration and change of password. Your transactions, and it's not a like-for-like comparison with a banking site wherein you can instantaneously make a fund transfer. Most of your critical transactions, and we go through that list, are protected behind a 100-point ID check. So it's not just a matter of having a username or password or an OTP or a PIN. It's also about validating yourself, your identity, and then being able to make those transactions on the system. In your case, it is likely that a KYC check would have already been done.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, I don't want to contend that, but I'm just saying that in the last 10 years, nothing has been any different. What I'm doing today is the same as I was doing 10 years ago, and there are large amounts of money that I transact, and I don't get asked to do any double authentication or anything else. It just goes through.
Yeah. So I'm happy to take that
I think it might be
one-on-one.
better if we have a conversation with you, but certainly I've been at the fund for almost, it's a year and a half, and even in the time that I've been here, there have been significant changes to the profile, and certainly where members are making changes to their account, as Akshat mentioned, we've put in place a new set of controls that require members to be ID'd. That's something that's been required by the government. So it might be that some of the changes have been occurring in the background, but certainly in terms of the things that you do when you're transacting with us, our security settings have certainly increased, and I've seen that even in the time that I've been there. But perhaps we'll have a chat to you afterwards and provide you with the assurance you need.
Thank you. The other question I wanted to ask, there's been a few mentions this evening about how we compete with the other big fellows, the big commercial industry-based supers and so forth. I guess I have this sense that 10% is 10%. And it doesn't matter what weight you put that against, it's still only 10%. So what is it that you feel the big guys, if you like, are able to do that we're not allowed to do? What makes the difference, other than, I understand there's some personal bond and the organisation that we all work for and so forth, but what are they able to do in the world of finance and super? Perhaps it is the Bitcoin and so forth that makes the difference for them. Are they the separators?
Thanks. More of an economies of scale question?
Yeah.
I think your question relates to our investment performance, so I might hand over to Dan.
From an investment perspective, we certainly invest the portfolio in a different way to a very large fund. And our focus as an investment strategy is to emphasise our strengths and then reflect on and minimise the weaknesses that we do have. But the way we're set up, we're actually set up to maximise those benefits of being smaller and being able to access certain asset classes which a large fund can't. And we're able to, that's a holistic approach. That's not just access to asset classes, it's also how we get in and out of asset classes. It's how we move the portfolio through the market cycle. I'd still comment again on those 5-year numbers. That's a longer than one market cycle. That's quite a decent period of really strong performance. That's net of fees and that's net of taxes, what you saw on the screen there. So that's completely like for like against the largest funds in the country, and I think it's a good testament to us being able to really truly emphasise those strengths that we do have, and they are genuine strengths as a smaller fund, and where we are smaller and where it is more difficult to invest in the same way as a large fund, we don't do it, or we do it a slightly different way. I hope that answers your question.
And so just to emphasise, we are seeing, incredible results with investment management. So we are up there with the best performing fund. When the announcement was made about the fund that topped out the best performing fund, that morning I got a phone call from one of the very largest funds saying, "What are you doing?" So it certainly is the case that while we are, not the size of some of the funds, as Dan said, we do really try to think about what agility and what difference that makes. So certainly we can have a very different relationship with our members, but it doesn't mean that that's coming at a cost in terms of the returns and the fees. The net performance of the fund is very strong. So I just wanted to really make sure that everyone understood that. But it does mean that we can be more agile and be more focused on the needs of this very special group of members that we have.
Excellent, thank you both. We've got an online question here from Peter. He's actually asked 2 questions, but I think they're sort of related, so I might bring them together. So he stated here, clearly ESSSuper isn't out of the woods for service delivery following the debacle of the system upgrade and limited services period last year. How many complaints remain outstanding or unresolved, and why? And following that, he's asked, are the CEO and board satisfied that ESSSuper fully complied with their obligations regarding the negative outcomes many members experienced? So I'll address that to you, Robbie.
Thank you. Look, as I said, and I think we were very upfront, we have worked very hard to embed our new systems, and we're very upfront about the fact that we know that there have still been instances where different parts of the systems that we were putting in place continued to not be operating in an ideal way that caused members to be disrupted. So, we have been very focused on getting it right and, trying to ensure that we're acknowledging those impacts on members and doing everything we can to resolve them. We did see an increased number of complaints. We work hard to resolve them as quickly as we can. At the moment, we have 61 open complaints. It is something that we monitor. I mean, we did see an increase in the number of complaints, and that's now coming down. But again, it's something that the board pays a lot of attention to, supervises what we're doing and makes sure that it's trending in the right direction. We use the information that we get through that process to make sure that we're catching any member who's not getting the right service, and that we're looking at that to make sure that if there's anything that's happening to more than one member, we're catching it and seeking to resolve it. So, we monitor the number of complaints, and we also monitor how quickly we're working to resolve those. So, I think it's something that we are unhappy about the fact that we've had, a period during the transition where complaints really spiked, but it is something that we watch closely, and I think we're comfortable with where it's heading, which is that we're seeing the system settle and fewer complaints coming in. In terms of the second question, are we satisfied that we've fully complied with our obligations? John, I don't know if you want to, maybe I can start.
You
here.
start and I'll finish, yeah.
The obligation that the fund had was to ensure that we had an administration platform that would work into the future. So it was, especially when you work in the public sector, but also in financial services, making these big system changes are always incredibly complex. They take a long time to do. We're a very complex fund, so defined benefits are less usual in Australia. It's a great thing for our members that they do have that benefit, but it does make us a lot more complex than the average super fund to administer. And we were operating on a number of different systems. So this fund has been, the product of a number of funds being merged, but we still had a number of different systems that were the product of the systems that were inherited from the different funds that were merged into ESSSuper. So it was the right strategic decision to make. We couldn't continue to operate and they wouldn't have been fit for purpose in the future, and they certainly wouldn't have enabled us to continue to strengthen our fund from a cybersecurity perspective into the future. So the decision was the right decision to make, to go into a new modern platform. But these are always challenging, and for us it was perhaps more challenging because of the complexity of the funds that we're administering. So I think that's really the primary obligation that was being considered, to make sure that we had a fund that could be administered into the future and that had fit-for-purpose technology sitting at the base of it. On the way through, absolutely there were disruptions, and we did everything we could to make sure that we were attending to those as quickly as possible and resolve issues that members had. So I think that we are absolutely acknowledging, owning and apologising for the fact that there have been disruptions for members. We do think that largely those have been resolved, but we do think it would have been negligent for the fund not to be making that challenging step forward, to be in a position to administer the fund in a way that met with modern expectations. So, John, I don't know if you want to...
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. And look, there's been a lot of soul searching, a lot of grief, as I said earlier, about the disruption that was caused, the stress and strain that delivered to some of our members. Not all of our members were impacted, which is an important point to make as well. But I think, in terms of our duty and obligations, we would have made the same decision again. I think we were let down in a way that we didn't expect by the transition company, and that was out of our hands to a degree. So we spent a lot of time remediating. I think the whole team, the whole of the staff, the board, everybody, sort of jumped into the fray and worked really, really hard, day in, day out, long hours, weekends, to fix the issues with the vendor supplier. In terms of remediating negative outcomes that members experienced, we have, with every member who has told us and come to us and said, this is the negative outcome I experienced, we've sat down with them and we've had a conversation. So I think if there are any of you out there who still believe that negative outcome that you've experienced has not been addressed, you need to contact the Member Services Centre and we'll need to have the conversation with you. But I think mostly the vast majority of the suffering and pain that was experienced was to do with disruption, delay, not being able to get hold of information, and that was really frustrating and annoying, but actual sort of negative impact didn't go beyond that for the vast majority of our members.
Thank you, Joan. We'll take another question from the audience. Yes, sir.
My name's John McLaughlin. I'm retired. I wanted to ask Daniel, I think, about a specific investment option, the lump sum investment fund. the return seems to have tanked very badly this year. It's much less than it has been over previous years. Has something changed? Is there something being done to rectify the situation? Thank you.
Sorry, could I clarify which option was that?
It's the lump sum account.
The lump sum account.
Lump sum account.
Is that better answered by Christian?
Yeah, I'm happy
Christian, do
to.
you
Yeah,
want to
happy to answer it. Yeah, so the lump sum account actually operates over a 36-month rolling average. So it's not only how the fund's actually performing this year, but it's the 2 previous financial years that it's averaged against. So you'll find that it actually increases slower and decreases slower than a normal fund would. So you'll find, because it's averaged over this period of time, it's a lot sort of smoother. So at the moment, the previous returns haven't been fantastic just due to downturns in the market, and therefore we're carrying over that average at the moment, which is giving the current rates. I think they're a bit over 3% currently. They're a bit lower than we'd expect.
Well, it's showing on the app 1% growth since the end of the beginning of the financial year, which is considerably less than what it showed in the previous several years.
That's right. Again, it's based on that averaging. So what we do at any point in time, and it'd be great if we had a conversation after about this as well, but we're always projecting from this point to the end of the financial year to say what we assume that we're going to be earning on this, factoring in the previous 2 financial years and where we are currently at the moment. So if we looked at it over a 36-month time frame, being in December, we've had 30 months of the 36 months basically happen, if we look at it like that. So we're projecting forward that extra 6 months. So we feel that we're going to be earning around 3% between now and the end of this financial year. But I think it's probably good if we have a chat after this, and I can give you the detail on that. Would that be okay?
Well, so is the answer to the question, nothing's changing about the investment approach for this fund, it's just market conditions?
Nothing has changed.
Is that the answer?
Yeah.
Thank you.
We've got an online question here. Adrian has asked the following question. What are the board's feelings about members' investment returns for the last financial year?
I can take that, Christian?
Yeah.
You're going to give that one to me?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think we've talked about it and we've covered it quite well today. We're very pleased. I mean, we're really proud to get that 13.3%, that best balanced fund result for all funds in Australia. It's just spectacular. So we're really pleased about that. And we're really respectful of Daniel and the team that he has and the way in which they operate the options and deliver that type of return for us. I think in terms of overall all the other products, we've 8 out of 9 have outperformed. So I think the board's view, and we have an investment committee. We meet and consider our investment performance. We hold Daniel and his team to account very, very remorselessly about, where's the performance coming through, et cetera, et cetera. So I think if you ask me what the board's feelings are, I'd say that we are happy this year.
Excellent, thank you. Well, we've got time for one final question before we wrap up today's meeting. So I'll give it to the audience. There's a gentleman here in the front.
Victor Sound. Look, first of all, thank you very much for an excellent afternoon and an excellent presentation. It's been very worthwhile. What are your predictions for the next 3 to 5 years in terms of returns? I know it's looking into a crystal ball, but I've got to do that as well. So I'm curious as to where you see the market and the conditions going.
Well, I'm going to refuse to answer that, Victor, on the premise that somebody will quote me. And
I understand all that. Sorry for asking the question.
Daniel.
You can give a diplomatic type answer.
Yeah, look, I have to be careful. I'm not licensed to provide personal financial advice, but as I alluded to earlier in my presentation, the economy needs to slow for inflation to come down. The share market is very high. it's at a very high level. We had a little bit of a negative in October, and it's rallied back up remarkably well in November. It's a challenging environment, I think. 3 years is a decent time horizon. You may not necessarily see the ebbs and flows over 3 years, but certainly over the next little while, it's a challenging environment.
Fantastic, thank you. Well, that's all we have time for today. I'd like to sincerely thank all of you for attending this annual members meeting. We really appreciate you taking the time to engage with us, share your views. I speak for all of us at ESSSuper when I say we feel privileged to serve you and are committed to doing everything we can to help you achieve the best possible retirement outcomes. I hope we've given you a sense of that this afternoon. Goodbye for now. Thanks.